and we're going to be talking about the benefits of moving your data and operations to the cloud. So with that, I want to introduce Rachel. Rachel, thanks for joining today. Appreciate it. Actually, I think you're muted. There you go.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Excellent. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Let's get into this. Let's get into the benefits of moving your data to the cloud. And I think, yeah, there you go. I got a little overlay of something. There you go. Perfect. Great.
So let's talk a little bit about this. We hear about the cloud all the time. So let's kind of dive in. I'm our vice president here at Data Canopy, so I'm super excited to be here. So first and foremost, kind of who are we and why are we here? Why are we listening to a webinar that I'm talking to you guys? So Data Canopy has been in the colo and cloud space for over a decade. We started out as an MSP years ago, the CTO, the CEO, and myself, and we had some data center space, and we realized that we were paying significantly more for our space than our neighbor was when we accidentally received one of their bills. And so that led to us going back to the data center going, well, hey, how come their space is so much less expensive than our space? And they said, because they're AT&T and you're not. So the brainchild for Data Canopy was born. How can we bring best in breed services to clients that were not the size of AT&T? And that's kind of where Data Canopy came from. What our goals are always to provide amazing customer service, right? So any size client, big or small, we don't say if you're not enterprise, we won't take you. We don't say if you are enterprise, we won't take you. We want to make sure we're always reducing complexity of infrastructure and keeping things performing as highly as possible, but with right-sized solutions. And then lastly, so many companies today have regulated industries that they have to be in. They could be in banking, they could be in healthcare, they can be in any kind of financial environment. And we have to make sure that we're meeting all of the specifications and requirements of those complicated industries. And so all of our staff has lots of experience there. You see the list across the bottom of all of the different industries. And we're also Microsoft and AWS partners. So that's just a little bit about kind of who we are and where we came from. So what do we focus on here? Custom fit infrastructure. So we want to make sure that we are making sure that the infrastructure is built for the companies that we're working with. No square pegs and round holes, making sure we understand not only the business goals, but also the technology goals, the growth goals, the innovation goals of a company before we start building that infrastructure. A lot of infrastructure is about pain points today, but also about where are you growing? What are your goals for your business in the future? We have to make sure we're planning for that. Cloud expertise is really important. We want to make sure that when we're looking at that infrastructure, that we understand the possibility of the platforms. So that being said, we're also very agnostic. I won't bring a solution to the table that's not right for the fit of each individual company. AWS may be the best fit for company A. It may be a terrible fit for company B. So we want to make sure that we're always agnostic in the solutions that we're bringing to the table and making sure that we're building it individually and specifically and not just saying, oh, AWS is great for everybody, or Azure is great for everybody, or private cloud is great for everybody, because each platform has amazing things that are good for some and not good for others, which leads us to multi-cloud access, right? Sometimes even within one company, what we're seeing more and more of is many things go to different places, right? Sometimes Microsoft applications go to Azure, and sometimes Oracle applications go to Oracle. Sometimes the elasticity of AWS is what is really needed for a client. So making sure that we are giving that multi-cloud access, that we can build and produce infrastructure where it needs to live. And then, of course,
one of the things that's important, Rachel, that you hit on is like not just because somebody knows AWS or Azure doesn't necessarily mean they're the right fit. As a matter of fact, a lot of times they nickel and dime customers for all sorts of stuff that they don't talk about at the beginning, and all of a sudden your price is not the price. So I think it's important for people to take away from this that you shouldn't just jump into something just because you've heard of somebody. That could be a big mistake.
Absolutely. And honestly, we even see sometimes high-level IT executives that maybe were at an AWS house before they came to this job. What goes into the cloud And what cloud it goes into is very much based on what that application does and how it needs to perform. And even some people that loved AWS before, it may not be a fit for the company they're with now, or vice versa. It was a bad fit for the company they were with before. So it's really important to do our due diligence and really jump in and understand what a company is trying to do and how they're trying to get there to make the right recommendations for them.
Yeah.
Economies of scale is really important as well. I think we're all aware that the bigger the company is and the bigger their purchasing power, the better their rates often are. So Data Canopy tries to bring some of that to the table as well with our data center solutions and our cloud solutions, because we can buy on a much bigger scale than individual companies, and then passing on, that savings to our clients. And then lastly, no matter which clouds you need or which data centers you need, having one vendor to help you manage all of that instead of multiple vendors really makes for an ease of doing business as the days go by. So, why are people moving to the cloud? And this is really important because it seems to be in tech, like everything else, that sometimes we just do what we do because it's what's being done and we don't really understand why. So, oftentimes we see a cost savings, oftentimes we don't, right? There's so many caveats to cloud and what do you have today? We see a lot of people that do get cost savings. If they've been in the cloud a while, we can go through and we can look at some contracts and see, are they the most up to date that they should be? We can see increased efficiencies by moving to the cloud. Um, Flexibility. So we saw a lot of this in COVID where all of a sudden we needed to be able to work in a different way than we had traditionally been working. People were going home to work, or sometimes they were in the office and sometimes they were at home. Sometimes it even depended on what state you were in and what your COVID restrictions looked like, how your business needed to run. And so the cloud allows that ability to be dynamic, which is really important in today's industry. Flexibility also goes to your go to market strategy. So we see a lot of what are your competitors doing? How are they going to market, right? Nobody thought 10, 15 years ago that we would be able to buy everything online. Well, if you're a company that now sells, physical products, do you have an online presence? Because if not, you're now behind and you're not dynamic anymore in your industry. Um, and then scalability is also a huge thing. Our online presences grow oftentimes faster than we think they're going to grow, and the cloud allows us to grow within that framework, usually more seamlessly than on-premise hardware does. Um, Something else about the cloud, we see a lot of people are not as interested in managing their own infrastructure anymore. They don't want the headaches of hardware and fans that go down at 2 o'clock in the morning, or some of the headaches that hardware has. So we see a lot of companies moving to the cloud because they want to be more focused in the business, and not on the business, right? They want to be focused on where their business is going and their growth. They don't want to be worried about when their server is due for a refresh. And then, of course, access from anywhere. When something is not living in your premise, when it's at a data center that has multiple points of access, you have a lot more flexibility that you can offer to your clients that are coming to you, to your staff that you're hiring. Um, you have a lot more ability to be dynamic in your industry and even be thought leader in the industry when you have the IT process and infrastructure in place that allows you to have that flexibility.
Wouldn't security be a reason too? And the reason I think about this is if your data is important to you and you have it sitting on a server at your office, all it takes is some fool to break through your window, grab the server, walk out, and believe me, it's happened. I mean, I used to own a chain of cell phone stores, and we would get broken into 3 to 4 times a year, and they would just smash or pull the doors out, smash the windows, and everything would be gone. And so, having your servers and these different devices in the cloud in a protected data center certainly offers a level of security too, right?
It does. And actually, some of the new State of the Cloud reports just came out. And according to Flexera's 2022 report, 85% of organizations say that security is their top cloud challenge, making sure that they're securing their on premise access and then making sure that their cloud is secure. So security is always top of mind. Where there is online infrastructure, there are security vulnerabilities and answers to those vulnerabilities that we can bring to the table.
Okay, cool.
Let's see. So what's going on in the cloud today? What are we seeing kind of in the industry and in the market? So um, businesses are expecting to see an increase in cloud spend by 30% just from 2021. So what COVID kind of did for the cloud industry was it in 3 years, it accelerated it by almost a decade, right? So where people were growing in the cloud at kind of a 10 to 20% per year growth over about the last decade, now we're seeing, you know, 50 to 30% growth year over year in cloud spend. In Pepper Data's report, um, 46.9% of respondents are pursuing private cloud, followed by 28.2 with hybrid cloud. So what we're seeing is people aren't just hopping into what they know. They're really starting to look at what can the cloud do for me and which way is best for me, which is so much better than just, oh, I've heard of AWS, I'm going there. Oh, I've heard of, you know, Oracle, I'm going there, right? Uh,
Yeah.
57% of organizations say that workload cloud migration is a top initiative for them this year. Um, they get rid of technical debt associated with maintaining and operating their own data centers, and they have more scalability and flexibility. One of the other one is, we see 53% of SMBs are now spending more than $1.2 million a year in the cloud. That is up 38% from 2021, right? So people would not be moving to the cloud exponentially like that unless there really were many, many beneficial reasons to do so. Um,
Yeah. And one of the things I would say here to everybody as you're listening to this is that, listen, the whole cloud, moving these servers and different applications to the cloud for me is fairly new. And I know for a lot of people, it's a fairly new concept. Don't get so caught up in public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud. The important thing to realize is the trend is to move to the cloud. And Rachel and I can help you determine what is the best methodology to do that. You don't need to understand how to do it right off the bat. That's why we bring in professionals like Rachel at Data Canopy to help you understand that and to help craft the right solution.
And it's really important because 74% of companies that are in the cloud are now listing cost savings and efficiency as one of their most important indicators of cloud progress. And going with an expert like Data Canopy and TCG allows you to bring that expertise in for you, right? So, there is 45% to 60% of companies say that they believe they have at least a 20 to 30% cloud waste. So why is that? Because they jumped before they did all their due diligence into a product that they weren't quite sure of. And so allowing somebody that's really an expertise in multiple platforms to guide you really helps you reduce that waste and make sure that you're getting the efficiencies and the products that you need without really hard financial lessons along the way.
Makes sense.
So now that we kind of understand where the cloud kind of sits today, what is it? So a lot of people still really don't understand unless they have a technical background. Like, what is the cloud? It's kind of this nebulous term that we throw around. We have providers that offer SaaS offerings in the cloud. We have phone systems in the cloud. We have, our own personal files and photos in the cloud. So let's kind of demystify it for a minute because unfortunately for me, it's actually not that complicated. It is rented hardware in a data center that you don't own. So what we're really doing is we have a data center here in the middle between the internet and the physical hardware. And it's the same physical hardware a lot of us have on premise. It's routers and switches. And instead of a server, quote unquote, we call them hosts. And that host has a piece of software on it that allows us to put lots of little servers on one big server, right? So it's what the term virtualization means is there's a piece of software that allows us to break up your servers that you had, traditionally on premise into smaller versions on higher computing power host or big servers, right? And then you see over there a SAN, sometimes they're called a NAS, sometimes it's even on the host itself. It's storage, guys. It's like having an external hard drive attached to your computer that gives you more storage. So the technology didn't change. How we brought it to market changed with different technologies like VMware or Hyper-V or EC2 instances in AWS, right? the physical hardware still lives there, but when you move to the cloud, it's just simply not your problem anymore. You just access it through the internet. So the cloud is not anything nebulous. It's still physical infrastructure that lives in a data center. So this brings me to, why do we talk about data centers? Because it's still important where that infrastructure lives, right? It's still
Yeah.
important that where that physical infrastructure is that's going to host your equipment is in a great facility that has no downtime. People falsely believe that, oh, if I move to the cloud, I don't go down. That's not true. Um, it's less likely because you're in a data center that has lots of resiliency built in, right? They have many, many providers for telecom circuits and ISP circuits, right? They have 2 or 3 sources of power. They're fenced in. The buildings are built to be resilient to any kind of weather. So Data Canopy has over 17 locations in the US, and we have over 18 locations in POPs in Asia and Europe and the Middle East. And all of that is to build in that resiliency, right? So some of that is we go where our clients need to be, and some of that is we want to make sure we can geographically reproduce our cloud nodes that we've built for our private cloud, right? So we can fail over to different geographies and things like that to keep that uptime. So that is why data center is important. Also, why data center is important is sometimes there are devices that we see. Old ERP systems are a great example. IBM AS400s. They don't go to the cloud. The software providers haven't actually said, hey, we're ready to take this to the cloud. So sometimes you are left after a cloud migration with maybe 1 or 2 things that couldn't go because the software developer doesn't have it ready yet, or maybe the lift is simply too big and you can't do it all at the same time. So sometimes you still need to put that on-premise infrastructure in a data center and have that same resiliency for that on-premise infrastructure that you're going to get from the cloud. So that leads us to kind of what's next, which is, what are the different types of clouds? You're going to hear all these terms. And so private cloud simply means that all of the infrastructure is dedicated to your company, right? So you'll hear, oh, well, we've built a private cloud. What that means is that company does not share the physical servers or storage devices with any other company. Public cloud is exactly what it sounds like. It's clouds that are offered publicly. So AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. You have a small piece of their physical footprint. You don't know who else is on that physical footprint with you. You might not even know exactly what state that data center is located in. Most of the public clouds give you regions, like AWS East, right? AWS East happens to be in Virginia. A lot of people don't know that. They don't know if it's in New York or Virginia or where it is. So those are the public clouds offered by the larger providers. And then hybrid cloud is a mixture of maybe a little private, maybe a little public, maybe we still have some things on site, which means you have a hybrid solution. And then multi-cloud really refers to multiple public clouds. So maybe we have some applications in AWS and in Azure. Maybe we have some in Oracle too. So the difference between hybrid and multi is going to be all different public clouds, where hybrid is going to be a combination thereof. So how do we compare these? There's a little meatball chart here, and I won't go through everything, but what you'll see, there's basically a couple of major differences. So you'll see a lot of the features are duplicated in both environments, right? So geographic redundancy, you can build that into any kind of cloud. Public cloud has a different billing model. So their infrastructure is less expensive and the network is a little bit more expensive, right? So they charge you for data transfer or egress. So how much data goes up and down, you pay for that. So there's a variable billing there that is not in private cloud. Private cloud, you're going to get the same ISP circuits like that you would have at your office. So maybe that's a 100 meg circuit or a 500 meg circuit, right? So private cloud is going to give you a little bit more flat billing, where public cloud is going to have a little bit more of a variable billing. consumption-based pricing. You can, in public cloud, you can turn servers on and off. Either maybe they're on 8 hours a day, or maybe they're on 5 days a week and they're off on the weekends. Where in private cloud, again, it's going to be more flat. If you have 30 servers, they're just going to kind of remain on, and it's going to be a little bit more flat.
I think
But
from a end user perspective, I mean, if I'm moving to the cloud, I want stability, right? In pricing. Like I want to know, first of all, I want to know what I'm getting billed every month. I mean, why do you think all the hosted providers are they've included free long distance, free international, because customers don't like surprises, right? They don't
they
like
don't.
that surprise of saying, "Oh, well, you happen to move a bunch of data this month and your bill's double the price."
Right? Or even triple. One of the other things that they do hourly billing on, or kind of non-standardized billing on, is VPN tunneling, right? So a lot of people want to create those VPN tunnels back to security. Well, there's a charge for each VPN tunnel that you have. So some companies that have 30 or 40 locations say, oh, well, we're going to go to public cloud because we have all these locations. It'll be easier. What they don't realize is what they're going to pay to connect all 40 of those locations up to that public cloud infrastructure. It can have quite a price tag to it that can vary, again, by the amount of data transfer that goes through those tunnels. So it can be
Yeah, so
very
so these
unwieldy.
public clouds, Azure, AWS, they can look good, from a pricing perspective when you get that quote, but the reality is generally not that.
And it's never consistent, right? I mean, we have some public cloud clients that have their reasons for being in public cloud, but we can see sometimes thousands of dollars a month in shift for some of our larger clients on the fees. I've seen as much as an $8,000 or a $9,000 shift on some of our clients' bills based on what they're doing in a given month with their data transfer. So
That's
that can
crazy.
be it can be really hard. So private cloud is a much better predictable budget. Um, and again, they both have their pros and cons, but we always want to make sure that we're really addressing that before we pick a platform, because once you're in a platform, you don't want to you're going to pay to migrate, right? There's a cost no matter where you migrate, and you want to make sure that that's money exceptionally well spent.
Yeah, not having to spend it over and over again because you didn't realize it wouldn't be like it was, and then you want to switch
Yeah.
again, and they're going to cost you. It's going to cost you again to move the data again.
Well, and one of the things we see a lot is, I don't want to be in a contract, so I'm going to go to the public cloud because I can do month to month, right? Where most private cloud providers are going to put you in a minimum of a 12-month contract. And so we see a lot of clients that start out telling me, I don't want a contract. I only want month to month. I don't want to be beholden to anybody for my infrastructure. What most people don't know is, to get that awesome pricing that you see in those quotes, most of that is based on a minimum of a 36-month contract in the public cloud as well. It's a 40 to 60% savings to do a 3-year contract or a 5-year contract, and even sometimes paying half of that up front. So while people believe they can go in, you are paying for the privilege of not being beholden to a contract, usually by 40 to 60%. So that's
Wow.
always important to note.
Yeah.
So how do we solve for some of those egress fees? If the public cloud is still the best bet for you because of the type of application that you have, and I'll give you guys a great example of this. We had a client that was a spa, and they had 80 locations across the US. And their day-to-day office infrastructure, right? Their file shares, their booking software, it was all very static. It didn't change a lot. And we put that all in private cloud because it was financially more solvent for them to do so. However, they had a very large online e-commerce platform. And at Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas, right, kind of the big holidays that we give our moms and wives and sisters and daughters presents, their website would explode, right? With people buying gift cards and booking online appointments and things like that. So we took just their online store to AWS so that we could instantly increase the size of it, right? And we kept the rest of the entirety of their infrastructure in private cloud because it made much more sense. So it's important to note that's why people go hybrid, because there's a call in some cases, but usually the entirety of an infrastructure doesn't belong in one place. Um,
That makes
we see
sense.
this. We see this a lot with companies, right? So that being said, there's still the contact of egress fees. So you can create something that is basically a virtual private connection between a data center and your cloud infrastructure. You have to be in a data center. So one of the things we created at Data Canopy was, because we have so many data centers in the US, instead of clients having to go out and take a rack in a data center and put network infrastructure in it to create this tunnel to the public cloud, we said we already have network infrastructure there. We'll use ours and we'll build that pathway for clients. So from the client headquarters, you see, we'll connect into the Data Canopy data center. From the Data Canopy data center, we'll ride one of the providers, usually Packet Fabric or Megaport, and we'll take you to the cloud. So if you do have public cloud, these connections, we've seen up to a 66% savings with Azure on egress fees and up to about a 49% savings on AWS with the egress fees. So you'll still have egress fees, but we can help you to reduce the cost of that. So those are always options that are there as well. You can't build these direct connects directly from your headquarters. You have to be out of a data center so that you can connect through, but we can help you build all that out. So even if you're there, we can still offer cost savings. So why would you want to work with a company like Data Canopy? Why would you want to come to us and say, hey, help me build my cloud strategy, help me figure out what cloud to go to? We've hit some of these points a little bit, but first of all is that flexibility. The fact that we're agnostic really allows us to help you build the right solution. We don't take any investment from any of our partners like VMware or Microsoft or AWS, so that we're never beholden to anybody for what solutions we help to bring to the table. It's really, really important to us that we're always serving each client and their individuality versus, oh, well, we took a lot of money from somebody, so now we have to bring their solutions to the table. We don't ever want to do that. Also, with our data centers, we don't build our own brick and mortar data centers. We use tier 3 facilities that are already built, which allows us to have a lot more flexibility of location. Reducing cost and complexity. We did speak to this extraordinarily kind of through some of the things that we've talked about. It's very important that we take a look at the full cost of ownership of your cloud infrastructure. What are those egress fees? What are those network fees? What rate are you planning to expand? So maybe it's affordable today, but if you tell me you're going to grow at 50% a year, we need to look at what next year looks like, right? We need to make sure you understand, because you're not moving to the cloud for 12 months. You're moving to the cloud more than likely indefinitely. And then lastly, dedicated account teams. One of the most frustrating things about outsourcing is that staff turnover. We all saw staff turnover in COVID, right? We called it the Great Resignation. People realizing they were working too hard, people going into different industries because their industry was hit really hard by COVID and they didn't come back. And so when we're talking about our infrastructure, we can't afford a lot of turnover, right? We need to have consistency there. So Data Canopy has built redundancy within our individual teams. So every client gets a project manager, 2 technical leads, and an account manager. And the reason for that is if we see some turnover, or if somebody is out ill or on vacation, you don't have to deal with somebody as our client or our partner that nobody knows what's going on. You always have redundancy built in, and that client satisfaction rating is much higher. If you have a technical lead that leaves, that's okay, because you have a second one that's been in the beginning with you, and we will train our own team up to snuff on your account. If you have a project manager that leaves, that's okay, because there's 2 technical leads that will bring the new project manager up to speed. So it never falls on our clients to retrain us on their systems, which is just frankly unacceptable. So, at the end of the day, there are a lot of good providers out there, and uptime and availability is, of course, the most important thing, followed by security and spend. But the experience that you have in managing your infrastructure day to day is just as intrinsically important as some of the cost and some of the uptime. If you need to do something and you need to do it quick and you can't, well, you might as well be down. So we want to make sure that that never exists for any of the Data Canopy clients. I'm going to wrap up here with another great case study. This is one of my favorite case studies. This was a client that a partner brought us to and said, hey guys, he was a consultant, and he said my client had a flood in their server closet this morning. They need a half a rack of half a rack in the data center. That's all they need. So if you guys could just please get it done for me, they're in a hurry. They had a flood. It's no good. So we went in and we did a discovery, and we got them the space in the data center. But we said, hey guys, what are you putting in the data center? Like, what's going on? What are your innovation goals? Just kind of talk to us a little bit about your plan. And it turned out that they had a 5-year cloud strategy that they had built, right? They just didn't have the staff or the time to do it any faster. And so we reduced that plan to 18 months for them because we had the expertise, we had the staff, and we were able to reduce their timelines. So it increased their efficiencies exponentially. They went from paper faxing and paper, a lot of paper processing to all digital. It allowed their go-to-market strategy for dropping those products onto their clients to be a lot faster. Brought them to a lot closer to the top of their vertical, right, and how they were delivering their products. And they've been a client now for 7 years, right? So we
Oh,
built a partnership with them, and so it's a win for everybody. But we had to do that discovery and say, hey, what's going on? Where are you going, and why are you going there? To really help them build out what they needed to have.
that's awesome. It's funny. I just got another case study here. I'm looking over here because we're streaming live in my Facebook group right now. And Chris was saying he had a customer move to the cloud, and he had his old hard drive in the closet, and they had a fire, and everything was destroyed on the hard drive, but he didn't lose a minute of work productivity because he had already moved to the cloud. He said it literally saved his business. And this is what we're
Absolutely.
talking about here, everybody, is, we're talking about literally protecting everything that you've built with blood, sweat, and tears, and protecting it and putting it in a great data center with redundant power coming in and all sorts of resiliency. You don't have that at your office. You just
Mm-mm.
don't. Maybe if you're lucky, you have two internet connections, but that's about it. You don't have two electric grids coming in. You don't have all this, fire protection systems that are going to guarantee putting stuff out. You don't have, unless you have like a junkyard dog in the office protecting it from people breaking in. That, alarms don't stop people. Believe me. When I was telling you guys, when I had my cell phone stores, we had alarms. They didn't stop these guys. They
Nope.
didn't care, right? So we're talking about protecting your business in all sorts of facets and just making it easier for you to stay in business.
Well, and another one that's really important, Ira, is power outages, internet outages. If everything you have is on premise and you have a power outage, or you have a hurricane or you have a freeze or wherever you live in the country, everybody's got different. Remember, just because you can't bring your people to work doesn't mean you don't have to pay them. People always forget if you have a power outage or an internet outage that lasts a day or two, you're still paying those folks their salaries. If you're in the cloud, you can send them home to work. You
Yeah.
don't lose that time, right? You don't lose that productivity. Aside from things like fires and floods and all the things that can physically destroy, sometimes stuff just goes south for a couple of days, right? In
Yeah.
COVID, we had people that were quarantining for 2 weeks every time they had a positive COVID test. So were you the employer that didn't pay that person, or were you the employer that tried to be kind because everybody was struggling? Then now you're paying somebody for 2 weeks and they can't work from home. This allows you to protect yourself from all of those different potential downfalls that can happen instead of just, oh, it's complicated and I'm not sure. That's why we have experts in this industry. That's why I do what I do, is to help you protect yourself with the right choices, with the right finances behind it.
Yes. Yes. 100%.
So that's kind of the majority of what I had for today. I really appreciate um, being asked to be here today. And if anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer them. Or you reach out to Ira as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I'll say to everybody is this: whether you're an end potential customer or you're an end potential partner of myself and TCG, or you're a current partner, whatever you are, I need you thinking about this. This is the wave of the future. This is like, back 15 years ago, people were talking about this thing called voice over IP, right? And it was like, it was new, but it was the trend. And now it's, everyone's going on voice over IP because they understand taking the phone system to the cloud just makes sense. And it's the same with this stuff, everybody. Taking your operations to the cloud makes sense for a variety of reasons, from security to cost savings to resiliency to being able to have remote workers and not have downtime. There's so many reasons. And I would say this: if you're an end customer and you want to dive in more deeply on your needs, hit me up. It's just ira at tcg-partners.com. Or you can hit up Rachel directly. You see her email here. But I can tell you this: I've known Rachel now for quite some time, and basically, this is going to make her head swell a little bit, which is all right because she deserves it. But I've sat in front of a lot of people so far describing what Rachel and Data Canopy do for customers, and I get almost always the same response after. Man, she's one of the smartest people I've ever talked to. And
Thank you.
and this is what people say to me over and over again. So if you're interested in moving to the cloud or even understanding it a little bit more, hit me up. We'll schedule a meeting. Rachel and I will get on a call with you and we will help you understand and navigate your way. It may or may not be the right time for you right now. We don't know that, but we don't know it until we actually talk, and we actually talk through kind of what you're looking for, what you're looking to accomplish, and then we can figure it out. And maybe it's now, maybe it's 6 months down the road, maybe it's 2 years down the road. Whatever it is, it is. But we're happy to work with you to try to figure out what that looks like. So if that makes sense. So Rachel, you have any final comments before we let
Just
everyone go?
just don't be intimidated, guys. We'll help you. We'll get you where you need to go. Don't be intimidated. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Um, there is no stupid question, and when you're dealing with your infrastructure, there is no too much due diligence. So I thank
Thanks.
everybody for being here, and happy to help in any way that we can, whenever that may be.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining, Rachel. Thanks
Thanks for
for
having
doing this.
me.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
I'm
it.
gonna put this out on LinkedIn here as soon as it's done processing. So we'll get it out on LinkedIn. It's already on YouTube and in my Facebook group, my MSP Growth Mindshare group, and we'll go from there. Have a great day, everyone. Hope you
Thanks so
learned
much,
something.
everyone.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you.